October 16th meeting of the Grosse Pointe Park City Council. So glad to have you all here this evening. We will begin with our roll call, and perhaps the first roll call, we should be actually welcoming a brand new city clerk this evening. Ms. Bowdler, we're so glad to have you on the team. Your timing could not be better. She comes straight to us from the city of River Rouge. She has already made her mark there and is already beginning to make her mark here, just having begun her second week. She is a certified city clerk. She has a pedigree of not only professionalism, but also volunteerism in her community. Is very much committed to community engagement and the like. So I think you all will find her to be a very welcome addition on multiple fronts. So with that, Ms. Bowdler, I welcome you. I ask you to do your first official duty of this body by calling the roll.
Commissioner Brenner?
Present.
Commissioner Gallagher?
Present.
Commissioner Caulfield?
Present.
Commissioner Wiener?
Present.
Commissioner Rayland?
Present.
Commissioner McMillan?
Here.
Mayor Hodges?
Present. I believe with that we have a quorum, correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. We can continue with the meeting. Next item up is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all please join me in doing so. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For that. Next we have before us, Council, is approval of the consent agenda. Items contained on that agenda include the September 11th, 2023 meeting minutes, September 27th, 2023 special meeting minutes, the Committee and Commissions report, the Finance report, a resolution adopting the MERS Defined Contribution Retirement Plan, a resolution establishing an early voting site, and lastly, the Windmill Point Park Playscape earthwork. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Wiener. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Caulfield. No discussion because it is consent agenda. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Brenner?
Yes.
Commissioner Gallagher?
Yes.
Commissioner Caulfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiener?
Yes.
Commissioner Rayland?
Yes.
Mayor Hodges?
Yes, motion. Did you give us from McMillan? Oh.
Commissioner McMillan?
Yes.
Great. We have a unanimous vote approving our consent agenda. Thank you for that. Next is public comment on agenda items. There are two public comments as part of this meeting agenda. The first of which is your opportunity to speak to items that are contained on the agenda. The second is your opportunity to speak to items that are not contained on the agenda. We do welcome you here. This is a really important part of our meetings and our engagement with you. We represent you. We are all residents too, so it's a very nice opportunity to be in communication with you and hearing what you might have on your mind. You do have 3 minutes to speak. I believe Mr. Seidlin or our city clerk, one of you will be staffing the clock for us. We just ask that you approach the podium, state your name as well as your street. And who would like to be the brave first soul? Yes, welcome. Good evening.
So, I'm Valerie St. John. I'm speaking both as someone with a vested interest in our public schools and a resident of Grosse Pointe Park. I'm here to talk about the Planning Commission meeting, which was part of the opaque consent agenda. Specifically, I want to talk about the transition plan that appears to be approving over 120 homes for potential parking zoning. The parking lots previously approved in a contentious meeting by this council, which clearly went against public opinion, are still not completed. My middle schooler continues to dodge construction equipment and the occasional open pit on their walk to school. And I have yet to see the promised beautiful, high-quality parking lots that Mayor Hodges was so excited to approve a few months ago. Why would we destroy people's home values by zoning them automatically for non-residential uses? Most of us purchased houses next to human neighbors, not vehicles, and the steady encroachment of pavement upon our residential district is decimating our neighborhood. Many parents in this area were furious that Trombley Elementary closed 3 years ago. While the process of selecting a school to close was deemed unjust by the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, the actual need to close schools was prompted by enrollment decline. In addition to a lower birth rate, the district's auditors, Plant Moran, found that a loss of approximately 500 housing units was a factor in our enrollment decline. Fewer homes, especially fewer homes affordable for young families, directly translates to fewer students. Every single home demolished for parking represents a potential student or more lost to our district. The The fact that the houses targeted for this transition zone are in the Cabbage Patch, which has some of the most affordable homes in the city, rather than surrounding the equally busy businesses on Jefferson or further north on Bridgeville, is even more of a threat to our future. I regret that the next planning commission meeting, which could have a stark effect on our school district, is scheduled to conflict with the next school board meeting, so I will not be able to attend. I hope you will consider the impact of your decision on our neighborhood and our larger school district when planning this zone. Our own parking study confirmed that we don't need more parking, what we need is better management. Please listen to the public on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dejan. Who would also like to be heard? Once? Yes.
Just on this one subject.
One moment, yes, Mr. Gardner, go ahead, and then would you like to
On this
speak as
subject
well?
or on another?
It's on agenda.
On agenda items.
Yeah, I have one for another item on the agenda. But if you,
No, I don't know what's on the agenda.
Oh. okay. I just wanted to address the early voting site, Ben Gardner, I'm on Beaconsfield. The Detroit Disability, there's two items I just wanted to kind of raise, the awareness you might already know. Detroit Disability Power released an audit recently that found of all the sites that polling locations that they surveyed with the help of volunteers and organizations, 84% were not all the way compliant with the ADA. So I would just urge, to do your diligence and make sure we can get to 100 with the early voting site. But that's just always a concern of mine. The other thing I just wanted to uplift, I know poll workers in this community do an amazing job. Our organization, All Voting is Local, is really committed this year to uplifting opportunities for younger people to be poll workers. So I know there's a lot of good stuff the community does with the high schools and other youth groups. So I would encourage you to consider reaching out to some of those folks. So I think it's an untapped group of people for poll workers. Every young person needs money for whatever, they're going off to college, they need to pay for the bus or to help mom and dad run the house. So it's a win-win in my opinion. I would just encourage you to, reach out to high schools, reach out to young people, show them they too can be poll workers, especially with the early voting coming up. It produces that much more of a need for help. Not to mention, just to wrap up the point, a lot of our conversations with clerks around the state, they're really honest about kind of the lack of proficiency with some of the technology. They've indicated in many communities that young people can help. So just wanted to uplift that and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Ms. Moriarty, were you able to assist your neighbor in determining if this is the time to speak or not? If so, we'd love to have you. No?
Me?
Yes,
I'll talk. No, I just had a question about the park pool.
well, this is the public comment portion of the meeting, which means you're welcome to address the council. We cannot do a back and forth at this point, but depending on what your need is, we can make certain that city administration follows up with you.
Okay, so I can ask a question or I can't?
Yes, you can ask your question, certainly.
Okay, I was just wondering, I know I look older, but I'm really in my 20s. Now that I have aged a little, it might look like I cannot get in the pool or out of the pool because the step is only about 3 foot tall, the last step to get out of the pool. So as much taxes as I pay to the city and I've been here over almost 50 years in here, and I cannot use that pool. And I cannot go with my grandchildren or anything like that. I cannot swim, which I love to do for my exercise. That little thing, it was a genius thing for the little kids to have that little ramp that they could walk into the pool. All I'm asking is why can't they make a little side thing on the side for the elderly people, not me, but the elderly people. They could walk in and not have to wait for somebody. There's a lot of older people that want to go swimming and can't. They have to stay on the side. and they're not complaining, or they are complaining, I don't know who they go to. But they're complaining down there because they can't swim, because they can't get out. And they can't get it, once you're in, you can't get out. Because you gotta make it over that tall steps, it's way too tall. I've asked 4 or 5 years ago, could you make a little step, piece of wood, anything? I mean, I could imagine it could make a step. Oh yeah, we'll look into it. Well, that was 4 or 5 years ago, so no, they haven't looked into it. They haven't done anything about it. I've gone to other parks in Grosse Pointe. They have little corner steps, which is a lot cheaper than whatever you people did, which I think is absolutely beautiful. For the children to walk into the pool instead of jumping over or hurting themselves. Well, older people could hurt themselves too. But anyway, I think if that little tiny ramp, it doesn't have to be as wide as the children's, just a little ramp so they can walk in, feel good about themselves, and then they can get their exercise off.
Thank you for
That's
that.
my main
For the
concern.
record, could you please share your name with us?
Oh, my name, let me think, I'm trying to remember.
Your 20-year-old name?
My 20-year-old name's Mary Williams.
Nice to meet you, Mary Wells. Ms.
I'm
Mariani, maybe you
Nottingham.
could get her contact information so that we can follow up. That would be great. Thank you for being here tonight.
Okay.
Is there anybody else who would like to be heard at this point in the meeting? All right, well, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting and move on to our manager's report. City Manager Seisland.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hodges and the council and public. Public Works is starting their fall leaf pickup this week. And we'll be using a weekly pickup schedule similar to last year, as where before it was 2 weeks and then we turn around, come back, and we're trying to stick to a weekly schedule so that it's easier, everybody for planning, for pushing the leaves out. You please ask that you place your leaves in the street or the curb line right away for pickup within 2 feet. Anything beyond the 2 feet from the curb line, DPW will not be picking up. And so we're gonna have the fall leaf pickup till about the second week of December. Playscape, I don't know if you've seen an activity over at Windmill Point Park, but we've removed the old playground equipment near the Olympic pool in the city, working with this contractor that's graded about a foot in the area there where the new surface for the Playscape will be put. And we're hoping to see some progress within the next few weeks for the new Playscape over at Windmill Point Park, so that's coming. If you haven't noticed when you're coming through City Hall, the former, or now it's back, but the art sculpture that was over at Kirksville and Wayburn is now at the corner of Jefferson and Maryland. I would highly encourage you, if you have the chance to walk by, to take a look at it. Not only does it have a plaque there with the information, it's actually got a QR code too that it's kind of neat if you want to learn more about the artist and the history and the group that created it. So kind of a nice place for people. So I'm excited about that. If you've been parking on our business district, especially in Kirchville, you may have or may have not yet, but there is new street parking meters that are being put in place right now, and that was city council approved for 75 cents per hour over on Kirchville, and then over on Jefferson and Mac, that'll be 50 cents an hour. So it's slowly but surely, you'll see those new meters being put in place right now. The city received a grant from the DNR and DTE of $4,000 for tree planting. So thank you to Brian Coulter and his hard work and their team. City Hall parking lot, that project is complete, as well as the alleys. And now we're just on to the punch list items. So where there's maybe a couple puddles here and there, areas we need to upgrade and surface. I see you smiling. We got it done. And,
4 years.
yeah, hey, we got it. And so, no, it's definitely a long time coming. New ADA ramps as well. And even just crosswalks and handicap parking. It's important, just the little things. And so I was really proud to be able to get this done. So, and then zoning ordinance. So the planning commission met on September 13th, discussed with McKenna a short review of the draft zoning ordinance. They met again on October 12th to discuss short-term rentals. And the commission will hold another special meeting on October 24th to further discuss the proposed zoning ordinance, as well as further short-term rentals. If you go onto the city website, we have a dedicated zoning ordinance information page that goes through and discusses and shows the planning ordinance, also McKenna's report. And so I would highly encourage you to take a look at that, as well as if you have any input on short-term rentals, as that's something that's been discussed here at the city council and through planning commission. And the TIFA will be presenting tomorrow with OHM advisors for a business district streetscape highlights and showing all the public engagement and other opportunities that are still available. I would highly encourage you to take a look at that. It's pretty impressive. They got about a 50-page slide right now on the city website. So it's good work by Tifa, and I'm really appreciative. So. And then last but not least, the city's been applying for drinking water revolving funds, clean water revolving funds. We were notified earlier this year, we did not receive money for loan for drinking water, and we were just notified for the clean water revolving fund. We were not funded as well. So we do intend to apply, obviously, for the next fiscal year and just continue to try. So.
Thank you, City Manager. Questions for the City Manager? Mr. Rowland?
Yeah, so just some things I've heard and seen. It's I was hoping Chief Bostic was going to come to give a little report as well. There's been a lot of stray dogs. And I know we previously had a contract with Herzog to take these dogs. A large number of residents have inquired about noticeably increased number of stray dogs. They've been told by public safety that the city no longer retrieves them. I think I'm a little scared to hear that. I don't know if there's a stray dog in our city, who else should be retrieving it, right? If Dr. Herzog is retiring, how will they be managed now and in the future? He stated that he shared this with the city months ago. So I just look into this, what is the process for a stray dog? We can't just tell our residents, sorry, we can't help.
So what I can explain, and Chief Bostic's at a conference right now, so I'll be happy to help fill in a little bit. But Dr. Herzog, we're taking our dogs and our strays, and we're a few cities that he didn't have. And there's also Grosse Pointe animal adoption. Excuse me. Herzog notified us, and so we and the other Grosse Pointe public safety departments have been trying to find a suitable partner to be able to find to help straight, bring in. We were working with Bostic, or Chief Bostic was looking at other communities and seeing if there were other organizations, and we're not finding them. And so we kept seeing if we could try and extend our contract with Dr. Herzog, at least in the meantime, because he gave us plenty of advance notice, but we're reaching out to everybody and there's no suitable partners or their. So this is something that the public safety departments are all looking into. We're seeing if we have the animal adoption help us temporarily, but still even there with full capacity.
Yeah, they're
So we're trying to find an answer to that right now, because otherwise right now without Herzog and animal adoption, we're probably gonna have to look at maybe each department possibly even to help temporarily house dogs if we don't have anything.
So what if Steve or Lisa from the crowd a resident calls the public safety, they just say they can't do anything?
No, public safety should be addressing it, especially if it's a vicious dog or any concern.
And I don't know what the training is for that. I wouldn't want to do that myself, but.
No, if we get a call about that, we will respond. If we can catch the dog, obviously there's times you can't, but.
Okay. So the residents still should call public safety.
They should still absolutely call public safety. In the meantime, we're looking for ideas, honestly, so I'd be happy to do those.
And then I emailed you some questions and you mentioned that you replied earlier, but if we can just put it out front, the lead line replacement is mandatory. We can't avoid it. I
Yes.
think we have 20 years to update everything starting last year maybe. But it needs to occur throughout the city. So how many have been replaced to date? Where have they been done? And is there a plan that we can look at that exists?
So last year in October, the city council, we reviewed a draft water sewer capital improvement plan. Within that plan, it highlighted for the next 20 years, what are we going to tackle? Obviously, from the water sewer millage aspect, we identified this year was going to be the EER. That's what we're going to go over. And then we're going to be voting on later tonight, potentially, a water main project that also has a significant lead service line component to it to help meet them. It's 2042 that we have to complete those lead service lines. I believe within the packet, this specific water main we're looking at addresses about 70 lead service lines.
It's highlighted.
Yeah. and
Was
so
that mentioned
it's-
in the?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
it's in the
okay, I read through it. I didn't see anything
Yeah.
about lead lines. I tried to talk about it.
Yeah. And so that's our goal moving forward, is now that we've got, the funding and the money, that we're going to target those areas again where, pressure issues, water main breaks, and significant concentration of lead service lines. And in this case, that's our goal.
And if I can just jump in there too. It's all about efficiencies. Right now, if we just tackle lead lines themselves, they're not, but I'm saying, if we just dig them up, it's a lot bigger of a cost burden. So what we're trying to do is piggyback it on water main work. And that's why, except today, one of the aspects of evaluating water mains is lead lines, density and concentration. That's one of the reasons why the Beaconsfield section, which we're talking about today, one of the biggest concentrations of lead lines. And that's why now going forward, the intention is every year we're gonna be taking out water mains and then trying to
And then
couple that. Yeah, that's the most efficient way to go through it. Now that we have the funding mechanism with the water sewer millage, we can actually tackle it.
Good. So the planning is going well.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The other thing I want to talk about is communication. We missed Target again when Maryland closed. A lot of people heard from the bus websites or they drove into it. We mentioned this almost every meeting that our communication is horrible. And I don't know what to do again, but if there are going to be street closures, what are your plans for letting people know? Do we use a Nixle? We use Nixle for water main breaks sometimes. I know there's been, I think 12 water main breaks in the last 12 weeks, the last 6 weeks. So people are getting Nixles for that, but I'm wondering what your plan is for communicating better.
Well, we did post for the street closure on there. I don't know if on Nixle, but I know on Facebook.
What time did you post it?
I mean,
It was-
I couldn't tell you.
It was the day of after it already started, so it was late. I mean, if you know about a road closure, they should know about a road closure almost at the same time. You know, it's just a simple, but it leads into our poor history of a lack of communication. And I think that starts with you. So I'm wondering what our plan is to improve this communication. We brought it up to you every meeting. All of us, all 7 of us have set our communication stocks. But there's still, last week, we still had a horrible example of how we communicate with our residents. So I don't know how we get past that. It's mentioned 3 years ago when we had the communication committee, that all you need is a checklist. Anything that's gonna happen, you put it on the website, you put it on Nixle, you put it in through an email, but that's not happening yet. So it's just something I'm disappointed at. So I'm hoping that we have a communication plan in progress soon.
Actually, if I might just jump in for 1 second. Actually, I had a meeting with Warren last week, the week before, on just that topic. Unfortunately, with a lot of the turnover in administration, we've had a lot of retirees. And we definitely realize that we need to kind of pick one person to be the point person in administration that all this goes through. But yeah, it is actually in the works, and the plan is at least a rudimentary plan, and agreed. I think it just needs to be a checklist, but we just need to identify, one person in administration, say it's your job to do it. It's largely, should be a relatively simple fix, but it is been a very recent topic and obviously ongoing topic of discussion, but we are actively working towards getting a simple, at least start towards a communications plan.
Especially regarding like punch list items. So let's say, like you call or somebody, if, hey, there's a pothole here, how's that process then? How does it get forwarded to myself? If it goes to myself, how does it go to this person, goes to there? And then being able to respond back and say, hey, we're looking into this issue and, we hope to solve it. Or, hey, we don't have our contractor yet, but our plan is moving forward. We're going to add punch list in.
It's been month after month that we mentioned how bad our communication is. So I think we need to really hit it.
Well, I mean, too, if you have any ideas for moving forward and even while you're off.
I gave you
while
the
you're off-
checklist idea. That's a simple thing.
No, even so, while you're off council, I'd be happy to talk to you more about it.
We're not to speak for Public Works directly, but now obviously we've got a clerk and there's also some assistants now specifically for Public Works for Tom Jenny. Obviously, their priority has been handling work. For example, if you take a look at it, our Nixle is more active than pretty much any other point, but we still need to build on it, get more communication out. But their priority has been responding to issues in the city as they happen, like fixing first. And now Tom Jenny's got some assistants in the office to try to communicate back, because again, we don't want to take people off work crews.
No.
But yes, the communication, we're working on it, keep building on it. But one of the philosophies too is we don't want to completely upend it, want to kind of build incrementally onto it so it's sustainable.
Yeah, what's Tom Jenny's title? He's the director. He shouldn't be in charge of the communication as well.
And that's part of our challenge, is finding that support, which we have not found that support. So if somebody can be that go-to, so like Max was saying, if Tom Jenny's helping respond to this, he can't do 5 things at once. He needs someone.
Yeah, he should just say, there's a problem, please report. That's all he needs to do.
Can go.
So the next thing is the communicator. So last month I inquired about the communicator and we weren't sure if it was going to go out, right?
I did mention that we were not a communicator.
We were, okay. And then, because there's nothing in there about Parks and Rec programs for the fall, things that usually go in there. There's none of that. There's nothing to link to our website on how to find programs.
Yeah.
I saw some good campaign tactics in there, but I didn't see any information about Parks and Rec. So I'm not blaming the editors of that. I think that falls on both of you for putting it together, a proper communicator. That seemed very haphazard put together. And I thought we were going to change it a little. I do like the leaf pickup in there, but I'm sad that we don't see Parks and Rec program that will increase our revenue. So people are emailing me, hey, where's the basketball sign up? How do you sign up for yoga class? That should be in the one thing that goes to everyone. That's what we mentioned the communicator was for. So we need to do better there. The last thing I have is the transition zoning issues. It's always been my goal to represent the residents here on council, and they know that they can reach out to me about anything we do, and they do. And I've been approached about this topic from a lot of people almost everywhere I go, and that's parking. When it comes to parking, I don't know why the residents should trust us. We've allowed demolitions of their neighbors' houses without any communication. We force residents to look at these numerous unfinished parking lots, as Ms. St. Jean said. For many years, over a year, some of these parking lots haven't been improved. They've just been sitting in that stagnant state of sadness. And then we constantly ask for safety improvements around the construction of these sites. So it's a disaster. Parking lots are really bad for Grosse Pointe Park. I said it before, and other residents said it as well. We can't seem to handle the amount of parking lots and improvements that we're trying to do right now. So why are we even thinking about adding more parking lots? Now you're coming at them with a proposal to make it even easier for developers and commercial entities to demolish homes around them without public hearings or approvals. I don't know why the residents would trust us. I don't even trust us with this process. This issue will be decided months after I retire from council. So I just want everyone to please promise anyone who comes onto these seats in the next month, please truly focus on the impact we have on our residents. Demolishing homes for parking is something no other great city is doing. We're a great city. We need to do better. I'm not sure who this request is even for, who benefits from automatically approved parking use. It's definitely not the residents. And it seems it would benefit those in the city that want less transparency for our residents. So again, I just want to do better. This parking plan is really not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland. Other comments? Ms. Gallagher?
Thank you. Just to follow up on communication, I think at its core, our communication should be proactive versus reactive. And we don't have a proactive communication. In terms of the communicator, it's important that it's put out quarterly. That is an essence of communication to our constituents, and we have obviously lacked in that space. I also noticed that the departments that affect our community, that provide the services that our community expect to maintain a quality of life, were barely mentioned in that. Each of that document should be represented by each of our departments in full about what they're doing. So having someone who is in charge of communication and proactively communicating and in touch with each of the departments, who should be aware of what their goals are on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, should submit some kind of a report to that communicator, who then puts it together and proactively pushes a weekly goal of what's to be accomplished in each of those departments would be, and would give our community a fair understanding of what's happening, and what our departments are doing and what the administration is doing. And that's my suggestion, and how we could, at a start, move some positive, proactive communication as opposed to reactive communication. As far as the Planning Commission on the 24th, it is my understanding, after attending the last planning workshop, is that there will be some document put together that potentially addresses the recommendations by those members sitting on the board of the Planning Commission as to what they would like to see for the short-term rentals, and how to get some kind of a plan that enables this administration to administer oversight for Airbnbs and short-term rentals. I expressed at that meeting that it's my hope that all the recommendations by all those board members be included and shared with the community for input. And also, there were comments at the Planning Commission and here today about the zoning and the transition plan. There did not seem to be much, there did not seem to be a cohesive agreement about whether or not there had been documents and versions of that plan shared with board members. Some board members said they had not seen it until it was presented. Mayor Hodges had mentioned that she had seen it and had many versions sent to her. I expressed it was my opinion, and it is my opinion, that the board members should have some insight as to what is being presented to them prior to it being presented to them at a planning commission. And that information needs to be massaged with the people making the decision. And those people making the decisions should be listened to when given recommendations. It is my understanding that those recommendations will be given to the community and will be given to the board for further review. It is my understanding that no vote is going to happen about a particular plan. There was talk about having workshops, there was talk about having town halls. So, and there was also an expression of it not being rushed to ensure that the community is fully engaged in making those decisions about zoning that impact them incredibly. So I hope that those recommendations are followed to ensure that we have the support and trust from the community as a whole in making those kinds of zoning changes and differences. And then I have a quick question about the leaves, and I'm happy to see the plan. When I look at it, I look at my particular area, the leaves are, they will remove the leaves on a Monday, and my day is Monday for me to put out my garbage. So I felt a little confused, and if you could explain it to me. If I'm gonna clean my leaves the day I'm putting out my garbage bins, or before that, you know, it's probably too late, the train has left the station now, but maybe in the future we could give some consideration that we would actually do street sweeping after garbage day, so that if there's anything left from garbage and the leaves go out, they can clean those up as opposed to having it before and then garbage day coming and things left on the roads. So that's my recommendation in the future for that. And that's all the comments I have.
Thank you.
This moment. Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
I have a
Seisland.
couple of things. So I'll definitely talk to DPW about that, Councilwoman Gallagher, and see what we can do from there. Going to the beginning, city's been looking in to see about getting away from a newspaper style communicator, maybe going to a magazine style, and or we go to a, it could be a weekly or bi-weekly email distribution, just a couple updates. So, that's kind of the process right now. It's already something that I've been working with Ms. Bowler on, looking into right away. So obviously she's got the election to focus on right now, but moving forward after that, going into the 2024 communication process moving forward. And then in regards to the planning commission, I know Warren did send out, as soon as he did receive the zoning ordinance, right away to those planning commission members. He was trying to get meetings actually earlier in the year, but people were on vacation and such, so he figured let's try and get the whole body together, let's not have half planning commissions in that. And so, moving forward, obviously that's the first draft. We're looking for comments. Obviously, I think we'll have a lot tonight, which is helpful for all of us, because not only is it a planning commission decision, but it's you as council are going to be the ultimate body deciding what to do forward. And we welcome your input, and that's why we started this process. That process started back in November or December of last year, and something that we're continuously working on, and happy to have a zoning ordinance that updated. It did work for us, but moving forward, we need to update it. So it's always going to have areas for headache and stuff that we need to look into, and that's why we put drafts out there to ensure that if there's something we need to pause on, we're going to take a pause on. We're going to consider that. And so anyone that has comments, anybody, that's what this is for. So let administration know, let planning commission know, residents appreciate all of your comments as well. I'm just proud that we're working on this. This is something that's been needed to be done for a very long time. So, thank you.
Other questions?
It's not really a question, but I'll just follow up. There's a tremendous amount of speculation going on. First and foremost, like there was a comment already tonight talking about how the ordinances were up for, or the zoning was up for a vote in city council. That's not the case. It's in front of planning right now. They're taking input from consultants, and frankly, I have a lot of faith in the planning commission. They're gonna go through the process. Up to this point, same thing with the master plan, they're extremely transparent. They tried to engage the community as much as possible. Again, we need to follow the process, but again, it's a disservice to residents when I see a lot of people making some very over-the-top speculation about bulldozing and what have you. The planning commission has got this right now. They're working on this. They will put something together, and it'll be a transparent process. And then the next check after that, once they put something together, is to come to city council. So again, we need to pay attention to the process. I encourage people to watch. All the meetings are online. So, and again, please attend them. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wiener. Yes, Mr.
I
McMillan.
think that's a good example of communication does need to get better. There's no doubt. But as some of these things arose, I know you put a notice out on Facebook. So I commend you for that. In addition, we had several people who were questioning about the cannabis and how it how it even got onto the ballot. Well, and then you explain that. So that right away, those two ways of communication really helps people put them at ease.
To that note, too, one of the most common questions I've been getting in the last 2 weeks was actually about the proposal 3 and proposal 4. So the city actually is clarifying, because again, we have 2 different proposals, and I won't project anything on it. The city has put some information out to clarify what proposal 3 and proposal 4 actually means. Again, it's a very common question. So it is on the city website. I believe it'll be going up on social media as well. Might be in the handout. So you know.
Well, and to that point, elections information is so important, right, City Manager Seisland? And I the only involvement I had with the communicator was the message from the mayor. I was not involved in the design, which is typical. The mayor always provides that. I was not involved in the actual design, but I believe, and I haven't looked at it yet, but you were going to put election information in there. So if folks do have questions, and we now have an FAQ as well regarding the proposals. So if you do have questions about it, please refer to your communicator. Please go to the website. And we're going to be open on Saturdays, Clerk Bodler, just so folks know about the actual voting process as well. You can do early voting now on the Saturday before the election.
Yes.
So please make sure you do that. You can vote at both City Hall at any time, as well as on the day of the election at Windmill Point Park. So making sure that is clear. Also, with regard to the short-term rentals, just so it's clear, I did my own research, but any versions of potential ordinances in that, I received them at the same time that the rest of the planning commission did. I think the community might also be interested in knowing that we have some Halloween programming coming up on October 21st. You can come and trick or treat in the park, maybe see some folks there. And then Pumpkins in the Park is being produced by the GPT Business Association on October 28th. So great opportunities for us to gather as a community. With regard to DTE, we did convene a town hall, and we're now in the process of following up on that, including some follow-up with the Michigan Public Service Commission. So residents should know that their interests are well represented, and we're getting some traction there. We'll continue to make that happen. I've also received a lot of complaints recently about trash in the community. So we really encourage folks to, one, cover your recycling bins so it doesn't blow around, and then other measures like that to keep our community clean and beautiful. And I know there have been some complaints as well regarding the actual garbage trucks, hitting things, doing things of that nature. So if you have any concerns about that, community, please let us know so we can document it and make sure we get it to the provider. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that,
I was
Nick,
just going
but-
to say GFL has been very good of late in responsiveness, especially when it comes to if there's a lost container or damaged. They've been very responsive to this. I think it's been a real change of course.
So please let us know. And much like DTE, the more we have documentation, the more we can bevy our report. We're more powerful when we go back to our vendors and that. So please, it's not complaining, it's not whining. It's actually really helpful when you share that information with us. And then I too would like to speak to the concerns that have surfaced regarding the zoning ordinance review. I want to make it very clear, I'm not in support of new measures that lead to the demolition of homes for parking lots. And I'm sorry our residents have experienced so much unnecessary angst about their homes and property values, which leads to my next point, and that is about good governance. The master plan was adopted and will be implemented through its companion document, the zoning ordinance, which is now under review for the first time in decades. It's a complicated undertaking that prompted the hiring of McKenna to make certain we get it right. The Planning Commission owns the process at this stage and will eventually advance it to this body for final approval. The 12 to 18-month process provides for workshops, town halls, and public hearings to ensure your voice is heard. The first draft has been presented. The consultant did its job by presenting what it sees as the best practice. And now we need to make it unique to Grosse Pointe Park by following the process I just outlined. That's good governance. What is not good governance is when politics get in the way. And I'm disappointed at having to make this announcement outside of the prescribed process, which is a professional and an honest one. Part of me thought about not furthering bad habits by addressing it tonight, but that is unfair to the people directly impacted, who have very legitimate concerns. Their needs outweigh the process at this point, and they deserve the certainty that I will not be advocating for this measure, and I don't think many of my colleagues or the administration will either. Allow me to also speak to the integrity of the Planning Commission, which is ably chaired by Pat Coletta, and now includes someone directly impacted by recent home demolition. His appointment was crucial toward building trust and making certain all views are represented. He can also attest that maybe we didn't have law to get us where we needed to get last time when homes were demolished, but we did have goodwill. And that I brought together all the parties, including the city, the homeowner, the developer, to improve the final result. And we were successful in doing that. Just as that result was a positive step forward, so is the zoning ordinance, which will prevent situations like that from happening again, because we've clearly stated the requirements. Going forward, and as we continue to professionalize, I call upon everyone to commit to a productive process that embraces a healthy tension and not one that impedes the end result. We do listen. We do care. We are smart. We are doing things professionally and properly, and that's good governance. Thank you. Moving on in the agenda.
Make a comment, please?
Yes.
I have something to follow up with that, if you don't mind.
No.
Thank you. Max, Councilmember Wiener talked about making sure those documents are ready and shared from the Planning Commission. As we are the voting body and the decision makers for that, it ultimately will come in front of us. As a courtesy to us, I don't like Friday to Monday voting, receiving documents on Friday and voting on Monday. I don't think it's fair to anybody, any of the members sitting on this board, and to our constituents to have only 2 days to review documents that impact this community tremendously. So while the Planning Commission is creating ideas and documents to present in front of us, those, in my business world, I spend a lot of time making sure the influencers who are making decisions are aware of what is being discussed, so that when the decision makers are presented with the material, all of the influencers who are making those are aware, and the decision makers are also aware of that information. So as someone who will be voting on that, understanding the different versions, and that those communications out of courtesy could easily be shared with the members sitting on this board. Now, you have Planning Commission, that's their job, then they give it to us, we get it on a Friday, we vote on it on a Monday. When you have a document that's so impacting to our community, it is proper and it is right to share it with the board that's sitting here, giving them the opportunity to have a view and a comment even prior to it coming to our board. So I request that that information be shared with me directly. If the other board members are not interested, that's up to them. But as someone who will vote on it, someone who takes it very seriously about what the impact of that is going to be on the community, I was able to attend the last meeting. I may not be able to attend all, but it is important that I clearly understand what the impact is to the community and decision. And I would also be able to provide any kind of an input, which would make it potentially easier for me to say yes, which would be in the best interest. The other comment that I would have to say is, if we have several board members who are sitting on the commission saying, no, I'm not interested in this, And, it's not something that I really want to look at. I asked the question, then who is driving it to be on the agenda in the first place? And who is moving that forward? And my understanding, it's the planning commission who is to be presenting the agendas and voting on those agendas as to having other people move those forward. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for the time.
Oh, and McKenna did detail a timeline, for the process too, of when they would deliver, in expected times. Obviously, there's, little play here and there. To your point of, a large document, the zoning ordinance, yes, very large, chapter 27, it's humongous, and there's a lot to unpack. It is important to, just for everyone to clarify, council pack is going Thursday, not Friday. So you do have more additional time, but absolutely to, getting such a document like that, being able to look a little more, that's something we can absolutely.
Well, and Mr. Seisling, as you reported earlier, there's now a dedicated page on the website, which includes all of the information related to this process that anybody
You can read the McKenna RFP.
go to that and
you can read-
do it now,
Yeah,
correct?
you do it right now.
So it's all there for us. We just have to be proactive about pursuing
But
the
you-
information.
And it wasn't all there. All of that information was not presented prior to this announcement being made. So this again comes back to a reactive communication versus a proactive. So there were, I know there were some documents that had been requested at the planning commission meeting saying, we didn't see them, we don't know what this means. And then they ultimately did go up,
Okay.
which is good,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying that all of them there,
I
but
just want to make sure you have it there.
if all of this was proactive and all of this communication, what was happening, I don't think we'd be hearing all of the feedback that we're hearing from the community. So we're here just trying to push the ball forward in a more positive way.
Absolutely.
Mr. Baker?
I'm sorry, I'm just getting a little confused. Nick, just to clarify, the zoning, going through the zoning, this is an 18-month process roughly, year to 18 months?
Probably.
With 10 meetings, 8, 12, a whole bunch, can we say? So it's not like it's just gonna get dropped in our lap on a Friday and we have to make a decision by Monday, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Not this Monday.
All right, team. I think we're good to move on and keep the meeting moving. So with that, unfinished business, we have none, which takes us to our new business category. And item number 1 under that is the establishment of an internal service fund for healthcare let me repeat that. Establishment of internal service fund, healthcare self-insurance fund. Welcome Ms. Moriarty to the podium. I'm going to assume you would like us to get a motion on the table and then allow you to sort of set the stage and engage in discussion. So with that, council, the motion for you to consider is to adopt the resolution to establish 677 self-insurance healthcare internal service fund. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Caulfield,
Second.
seconded by Wiener. Discussion, Ms. Moriarty, if you could please update us, provide an overview.
Good evening, council members. Before you tonight is a request to pass a resolution to establish what's going to be known as the 677 self-insured fund. This is an internal service fund that operates similar to that of the enterprise fund. And what this is going to do is, after discussion and review of the process that we adopted in the fiscal year 2024 budget, we included within the general fund a department called 850. This was where we budget annually for healthcare, fringes, and other types of benefits that are provided to the entities. My research of the activity that occurs within that fund was to see that we specifically have, since 2008, a self-insured healthcare program. It's offered for the active employees and for the retirees that are pre-65. We also have a number of post-65 employees within the self-insured program, in addition to a fully insured program that we pay a monthly premium. When I reviewed this and I checked for the state chart accounts, I've also had several discussions with our new auditor. It was determined that I should abandon the 101-850 department that we're utilizing now as an internal service fund within the general fund and actually create a 677 internal service fund. This internal service fund will collect revenue from each of the departments within all of the funds. So when we have an employee that works in the water sewer fund, an employee that works for the building department fund,
or general employee fund, their portion of their healthcare costs will be moved from the fund to the internal service fund, which will actually pay for the healthcare on a month-to-month basis. Going forward, as we set up our budget structure, within our budget structure, we will have new account numbers that are dedicated specifically to the type of expenditure so that we can, from year to year, start to look at what the actual activity is for each of those benefits that we provide. What is the pension cost for the active versus the retiree? What is the healthcare cost for the active versus the retiree? These expenses will be within the fund rather than coming directly from the general fund and then trying to shuffle funds from the other funds back over to the general fund to make it whole each year. The 850 is set up currently as a fund where it shows the expenditures accumulative for all funds, not just the general fund, and then has a contract account set up within the fund to zero it back out. So we're going to change the way that we do the method of accounting, and within the state chart of accounts, in order to create this fund, we have to have a resolution to do that by the board. The parameters of how this will work are set up within the resolution. We will do it from a matching principle so that 1/12 of the expense from each department based on that employee's election of either a single, a couple, or a family rate will then be transferred into the 677 fund as a revenue, and then the healthcare will be paid directly from that internal service fund. We set up parameters so that it doesn't become overfunded, and just like we amend budget when we see expenditures increase or things that may have not been pre-planned in our budget, we couldn't have budget appropriations. Those will go within the actual fund that the employee resides, where the expenditures will truly be captured year over year as an activity of that department.
Thank you, Ms. Moyer. As always, great overview. Are there any questions? All right, council. Yes, Ms. Gallagher.
I do, thank you. So you'll be removing the fund 850 in total?
So I've abandoned it. The accountant has asked me, the auditors have asked me not to utilize that fund. So currently we are expensing healthcare from the individual fund that the employee resides.
Okay, and you'll be replacing that with the
677.
okay, and that fund will also sit in the general fund or outside with its own specific fund,
It will be
not within the general fund?
healthcare only.
Okay, so we have identified a potential increase in healthcare costs, right, for our new budget over our last budget. Can you share with us for Q4 fiscal year 2022 and the delta for Q1 fiscal 23? Are we on target, or are we seeing a large increase? Are we on target with increase for health insurance? We talked about increases in healthcare costs and how our funds are structured. So I'm trying to understand if we're having here in the park any increase in impact from end of Q4 fiscal 22 to Q1 fiscal 23.
So fiscal year 2024 is the current year that we're.
23, yeah.
And in fiscal year 2024, I have the healthcare actual costs that are being charged us from our plan provider for 6 months. I am currently working with Management Vans, our benefits provider, to determine where our expenditures are going to go with the renewal that comes up in January 24 for the next calendar year. Those expenditures will most likely come back to the board in January once we know what those are, if we feel that we have insufficient budget available for the healthcare costs, because our costs are based on 2 different factors. We are part of the healthcare coalition for a pool. The actual experience of that pool is spread among all of those communities. All 5 Grosse Pointes are part of this pool. As part of that pool, 50% of that burden is shared by all of the Grosse Pointe communities, and 50% of our actual costs are actually charged to us directly. So as we are self-insured, you're not paying a regular premium every month like you would with a fully insured program. Your fixed costs will be the same throughout the entire year, depending on whether the employee elected to have a single, a couple, or family plan. As part of this self-insured plan, our costs are based on actual claims. So because they're based on actual claims, there is always a lag in the time in which the claims come in and the time in which they determine our actual expenditures based on that running total. So when you're looking at quarter 3 in fiscal year 24, which will be January through March, you won't have that information until they have finished up with the last quarter, determine what those actual expenditures are, to set our new monthly rate. We pay the same amount every month, each quarter per quarter. So I currently have quarter for October, November, and December that we're currently paying. And I'm still presently waiting on this quarter for 2024, which will be January.
So thank you for that. My specific question was for the end of fiscal year 22, quarter 4, and the delta between quarter 1 of fiscal 23. So that would be July, August, September, October, November. I understand January. So yes, our fiscal year Q1 2023. So we ended.
With 2022, you referenced that.
So we ended in June of 23, correct. Sorry, I'm incorrect in my statement. We ended in June of 23. And that ended our fiscal year, right? So I'm asking what are the last quarter for our healthcare spending and the Q1 of fiscal 23. Have we seen an increase in our healthcare costs?
Yes.
And how significant is that increase?
The fourth quarter of fiscal year 2023, we were seeing monthly invoices of approximately $139 a month.
$139,000? And
In the first quarter of 2024, which was July, August, and September, that rate increased to about $203,000.
$203,000.
So the second quarter of fiscal 2024, quarter we're currently in, we're paying, I believe, $187 a month. So we've seen a slight decrease based on the actual claims and our percentage.
But a significant increase over
The
prior fiscal year. And your point about January is we're not sure what it's going to look like in January. The hope is that it continues to decrease, but will be contingent upon claims that are made, et cetera. So when I look at the budget for 2020, our proposed budget 2023-24, and I look at our healthcare appropriations in Fund 850, which we're voting to remove, to have more transparency and clarity and understanding where the specific costs are going to, and I'm in support of that. I think it's an important move. I see that we had an original budget of $2,096,000, and we had a proposed budget of $2,124,000, and the delta there is about a $30,000 increase from one or the other. And I guess what I'm looking at here and seeing is that we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of increase, and it seems that we may be having a shortfall in our budget.
I believe based on projections at this time, we could be looking at close to $2.3 million in healthcare spending for fiscal year 24. I have not yet brought anything before the board until I know specifically what our renewal is going to look like on January 1 and what our costs are going to be once they receive the lag report. I have updated those numbers so that I have 3 quarters to report back to.
Okay, and we'll be addressing a plan to address that shortfall and its impact on our budget.
We would have met the budget if I anticipated a shortfall at that time. We will project out the fourth quarter of 24 when we bring that budget.
Okay, in the past, when we had seen the financial documents, and it just dawned on me actually as I was looking through them today to see if we had any increases in healthcare costs. we would previously see a list of all of those expenditures that were over 5,000 for the body to approve, but I didn't see them in the consent agenda or in our agenda today for us to review those expenditures. At some point, are we going to see those documents for approval for the board?
So I believe there was some discussion I had earlier, either in June or July, that we would no longer be reporting monthly expenditure, but that we would be doing a quarterly financial update, which was in the consent agenda. Showing the actual expenditures for the first quarter.
Right, I see them in buckets in the chart, but I don't see them in details as we had seen them before in specific vendors and how much we're spending with them and you know, who they are and where that money's going. We can, while we're moving, it's interesting, right? So while we're moving this new fund to create real transparency in terms of where that spending's going, the quarterly agenda seemed to move into a real kind of, you know, just big buckets, and that's where that money is going. At some point, will this body see those detailed spends for our vendors and where that money is going in line items, or does that is that now moved to an annual review?
So my hopes were to give you an actual financial report rather than just a list of expenditures. The expenditures that you see as a board, when you're adopting budget and you're planning for expenditures throughout the year, is a list or a detail of the information that we're spending annually. The ideal is to provide you an actual financial report each quarter to show you where we were in relationship to our revenue collection and where we are in relationship to expenditures to the adopted budget at that time. Within that quarter, you can see that every quarter we should be spending approximately 25% of our budget. You can see that in the first quarter of fiscal year 24, we spent approximately 26% of our budget, but due to some of the one-time expenditures that we've incurred, such as the property and casualty insurance, there was a one-time $300,000 payment made there. And we also had a bond payment. It was due on October 1st, and we made that payment in September to be on time for our bond payment. So there are sometimes one-time occurrences that cause the expenditures to be slightly over or slightly under, depending on whether we're paid quarterly, we're paid every 12 months at a time, or if we have one-time expenditures once a year. If you want more information as it relates to expenditures, we can prepare or add something to it, but the report that you were calling a financial report was really just a list of expenditures that go through AP. And it was my goal and my hopes to show you an actual financial report that shows where we are in relationship to the adopted budget, and where we are with expenditures, and where we are in relationship to revenue collection to operate.
I think that's really important information for us to understand, but I also think it's important for us to understand very specifically where that money's going. Right, so if we're spending, you know, I'm just gonna throw numbers out there, right? If we've collected $1 million in revenue and we spend 600,000 in revenue, that's great. And we all know that now because we have a chart that shows us that's what we did. And I'm just making those numbers up. Don't quote me on that, Brad, please. But what would be also really important is to clearly understand who is getting that money, right? Are we, you know, how much are we spending with OHM? How much are we spending with McKenna? How much are we spending clearly with our folks who are cutting our grass for us? In my mind, not only having a high level financial understanding of where we sit financially and what the health of that budget looks like, and also understanding clearly where that money goes is another piece of important information. Maybe we could talk about how we can look more clearly and more detailed in that.
Something Ginger and I have been talking about too, and I know to this body and this council, is that, you know, the next budget that you will see in council, it's gonna have a lot more information, the footnotes, so everyone can understand what you said is for the grants and here's where this expense is. So you're not trying to figure out where it's in layman's, you know, general broad, let's try and So
And
for
that's
sure.
an annual, right? That's which is good,
Yeah.
but maybe we even look at that in detail on a quarterly basis, right? Because sometimes, if you think over a year, things can get away from you pretty quickly.
Like most expensive vendors or something or
Yeah,
highest
so
cost, yeah.
we're spending so much money with our OHM vendor. Maybe we should look to, how much really have we docked with them and how much do we potentially look at spending with them? And is it time to maybe look at and having it go out to bid like we did with our city attorney? I'm just making a comment, a point, right? Okay, thank you, Ginger. I appreciate you taking the time.
So to keep this on point, we're talking about the internal self-insurance. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, I think the work you're doing is tremendous, and the scope of work, Ginger right now is completely overhauling the entire financial system here. In terms of the line items, for example, OHM expenditures, if you're paying attention to the packets, as we make votes or in the consent agenda, it's all broken out. If we're talking about the self-insurance, I mean, it sounds to me like you're asking Ginger to break out line items of every healthcare expenditure. That is just a tremendous amount of busy work the way it's kind of been stated. It's got a whole lot of work to do already. If we want to have more in-depth breakdowns, we can, but if you're paying attention to the packets as we're getting them, the information is there. Again, it's all fine and good this happens all the time, like whether it's communications or whatnot, it's all fine and good to make additional requests, but we have to appreciate the trade-offs. If we are sitting here saying Ginger should give us line items on every healthcare breakdown, that's a lot of busy work that pulls her away from the work that she's currently doing. I, for one, think the information I'm currently getting from her is tremendous. It's a lot better than what we had. Not to, I think we're in a much better state in terms of the information that's coming our way right now. And again, I'm cognizant of the amount of work, the scale of work that you still have to do. I mean, we've got an audit coming, and there's a reason why we moved to go to the new audit firm. So anyway, again, I just pointing out, like, again, breaking down all the line items, it sounds all great, but there is a actual human cost to it. And it's information I don't know is going to make any difference considering we have the information for the breakdowns as we're voting on it.
We have an accounts payable report when you do the weekly check run. It wouldn't provide you expenditures over 5,000. It wouldn't provide you a report of every single expenditure. I would be happy to share that in every package on these report check runs. We can provide that document as part of the weekly or the monthly as to what was cut and what checks were cut.
It's a report, it's not that.
Try to filter out those that are over 5,000. Because what happens with that report, and I took a look at it, and honestly not really sure what value it added. Let's say this month we paid OHM, you use them as an example, $10,000, they would be up. But let's say next month we only paid them $4,500. They wouldn't meet the threshold of 5,000. They wouldn't show up on the report. So then every time you get a report, you're getting inconsistent information month over month about what expenditures happen to be over $5,000. Where I could give you a report of every expenditure that we paid as part of our AP report that the system automatically generates when you generate a check. It's not filtered. It would at least show you every expenditure as a transparent piece of information of where all the funding is going. I think it's time to provide that and would create additional time or effort to sort through activity to find all of those specific items that are on that pocket.
I mean, I'm assuming it's a report that you could quickly generate by
It's
putting a
all
filter on
quickly
and there it
generated.
is and then it goes and if it creates a little bit more transparency, right? So we do pay attention to the information that comes to us and we do read it. I know for a fact we're asking for $90,000 to go to OHM today. Support, that's right, it's in here. Now that 90,000 is in here and next month it may be something else. And if you're suggesting that we should make a note at 90 over here and then make a note at 90 the next week and next month we'll have 120 and well, we'll keep track of that to see. It's quite easy in our systems and please understand, and for anyone to insinuate that I'm not suggesting that you're doing a good job. I'm very grateful that you're here and we're seeing a lot of good work that's coming from here. And by providing more information is not a bad thing. It can actually create some clear understanding about where our money is going and how much we're spending to any one firm or another. And this information can be helpful. So if it's not too much work for you and too much of a problem, and you can run a report quite easily, I don't see the harm in providing it for transparency for this board.
So we currently have a motion on the table, and I don't think that this discussion is necessarily relevant to that. So I would ask us to get back on track to the agenda items, just because should be a short agenda, and we have council comment later. So if anyone would like to make a comment on these issues, that can be done during council comment.
Thank you, City Attorney McAtammy. The only other thing I would ask maybe Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Caulfield, in your capacity as council member for finance, perhaps you can work with Ms. Moriarty for the future to make sure we are properly reporting and are as transparent as possible. So thank you, Ms. Gallagher, for bringing that forward. And with that, unless there's any other discussion core to informing our vote, I would ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Commissioner Brenner,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallagher,
Yes.
Commissioner Caulfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Mayor Hodges.
Yes, motion carries. We do have that new line item 677. Thank you, Ms. Moriarty. Next on the agenda is the commercial business procurement card. Before you, council, the recommended motion is to approve commercial business procurement credit card policy as described in the attached resolution.
Motion to approve.
Moved by McMillan, is there a second? Seconded by Gallagher. Ms. Moriarty.
So before you this evening is a request to pass a resolution in accordance to the law to allow the city to enter into a commercial business procurement credit card service program. The idea behind this is that while we make purchases of many items from office supplies to new roads, we have various vendors that will accept a credit card as a means of payment. Procurement cards offers what's called a rebate or a cash reward. So the idea is that by establishing credit cards, this will provide us lines of credit or service that we can use these cards to make purchases of goods and or services throughout the city. At the same time, try to help reduce the amount of the expenditure that we're incurring when we purchase these goods and services by receiving some type of a rebate back from the procurement card. We are looking at a procurement or a commercial business card with JPMorgan Chase. JPMorgan Chase is one of our banking institutions that was approved by resolution as a depository, as well as is our current banking institution for our general checking. They are offering a 25-30 settlement, so we will be paying invoices within 25 days of the billing date to ensure that the card is paid before any interest is incurred on the city's part for the use of the card. And they have offered us rebates starting at 45 basis points up to 75 basis points, starting at $250,000, and it graduates to 75 basis points if we have $10 million a year in expenditures. I don't anticipate a date on that nature, but should be, it graduates to that.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, the resolution that's included in the packet, the body of it is correct, but the title is incorrect. So what you would be approving this evening, council, if this motion were to carry, would be the resolution to adopt business procurement credit card policy as described, not the service fund for this. I think it was just a typo. Yeah, just making sure that that's clear and there's no confusion. Is there any discussion? Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Brenner,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallagher,
Yes.
Commissioner Caulfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Hodges.
Yes, motion carries. We have a credit card policy. Thank you very much, Ms. Moriarty, for the continuous professionalization of our systems and processes. Next up is the approval of a design engineering proposal for the 2024 water main project. The recommended motion is to approve engineering proposal for the 2024 Beaconsfield and Maumee water main improvement project at an amount not to exceed $90,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
By Wiener, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Caulfield. I know we have our engineer here today. Welcome, Mr. Droz, glad to have you. And of course, we also have our chair of our infrastructure committee and our city manager as well. But with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Included in the packet was a proposal for engineering services. This is inclusive of what we call design phase. So as the council member Peter had mentioned earlier, the selection's been made to focus on Beaconsfield for this year, that being the 2024 construction season, to make sure that we're in a spot where we can get this project out to bid early in the season. We will start this now. Essentially, the design phase will look at 2 blocks in Beaconsfield, in Burner and Mac. And then we've also included a section of Maumee as well, which working with Tom Jenny with DPW, identified that that's another area that needs to be looked at. So this design proposal would include that. Design includes what we call topographic survey, where we go out and collect information on the existing conditions, design, permitting with the state of Michigan, and then getting it into bids. Our goal would be to get this back to council in early 2024, so we can get on construction at the start of the fiscal year after July 1st. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, council?
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, I know in the past we've had the soil borings always haven't told the story they need to tell, and that's led to additional costs. Is there a way to ensure that this project is properly bored so that we have a real sense of what the cost might be, or is it just a random, you never know?
So we'll probably talk about this on our next item. With any sort of underground construction, there are unknowns. The goal of part of the design process is try to figure out as many of those as we can, so we kind of reduce that risk portion. We utilize on all of our projects really this unit price based bidding, where if there are changes in the field, we can easily negotiate that and kind of know the price going into the negotiation with the contractor. That being said, as part of the design phase, we're going to be doing soil borings along the streets, basically get an idea of what types of soil are there. And then our preliminary engineering phase, we're going to look at different technologies to install the water main. This particular, especially Beaconsfield, there's a number of underground utilities that we do know of. There's AT&T, there's 2 gas lines, an abandoned gas line, water main, there's DT Electric as well, all underground, all within the greenbelt areas. But that's likely where we're doing our work. So as part of our investigations, getting information from the utilities, our goal is to really try to get as much information as we can. So we have that, on the plans. And we're most likely going to use what we call a trenchless installation. Similar to what DTE was doing with their gas mains and also what we did on MAC. The goal of that is that it really kind of limits some of the pavement disruption, so people can still get in and out of their houses, kind of limit those impacts. That being said, there are 78 lead service lines along these routes, so there's going to be some disruption not only to the right of way, but also to people's property. So a big part of the projects is, as we're seeing, in the last year, been doing a lot of infrastructure, is that notification process, letters, door hangers. Working with Tom, we're really trying to make sure that people know when we're in the neighborhood what it's going to look like. So there aren't surprises, especially with water mains. There are inevitably the breaks that happen when we don't want them to happen. We don't want to be inconveniencing people. We don't have to. Getting out of the house with that running water is a big part of it. So that's more construction phase than just kind of speaking to it.
Well, and clearly there have been a larger number of water main breaks. This starts to address it because we're upgrading 100-year-old infrastructure. With that said, in the short term, I understand we are in dialogue with LEWA to come up with solutions that prevent those that pattern of breaks from continuing. And I would also hope that there's discussion with them as to how to cost share, because our taxpayers should not have to bear the cost of a system that serves the entire region. So I don't know if there's anything that's here today. We don't need to belabor it, but I think it's important for taxpayers to know that.
I think it's Steve, I was gonna ask that. I know we're talking about this, but can you comment?
So as was pointed out, we have seen a significant number of breaks. I think you were saying, Councilman Rowland, basically like 12 breaks in the last 12 weeks. It's probably pretty close. Around August 10th or so, there was some modifications within the GLWA system where we noticed the pressure go up. There's been communications about why and what we do to get that down. GLWA is working to bring that down. It's kind of a seasonal thing where as people are irrigating less, there's less pressure needed. That being said, we're looking with DPW about ways to kind of provide a little additional protection on the city system. We have 3 feeds from GLWA. The contract allows for those to go, there's a fairly wide pressure range that they can adjust. Yeah, do within their system. But we found that there's a certain point where it becomes more powerful in the city system. Working with the DPW about coming up with some solutions on that is part of some of the next several months.
Functionally, we have short, mid, and long-term planning with the water mains. Obviously, this is the main drivers of the water sewer millage. The core of the infrastructure, the water mains are past end of life, 100 years old. So now we're pivoting in every year. The intention is to do water main projects, trying to tackle 2 to 3% of the water mains every year. Again, we are putting together a dynamic plan, as we've talked about before. If we have any supplemental funding, if finances become more favorable, if construction comes down, it's unfortunate right now we're kind of fighting the double-headed dragon here of extremely high construction costs and financing issues. That said, the intention is every year we're going to be tackling water mains. Now, in terms of the short, mid, and long term, yes, GLWA had some issues. DPW's done a tremendous job of tackling them. I mean, that's what they're going to do. They're going to patch whatever they can patch, but certainly this is one of the reasons why when we're targeting the water mains, we have a number of factors that go into what we decide on. Obviously, areas of breaks, that's why we did MAC before. MAC was the biggest area of water loss, and that's a huge cost to the city, not just the patching, but the water that goes out. Certainly, we have our lead line mandate. That's why we pivoted to Beaconsfield. We're doing a section of Maumee because this is a big area of breaks. Also, we're trying to standardize because right now, if you've seen the map before, we have a hodgepodge of different dimensions, different diameter water lines, water mains. So we're trying to basically kind of bring it up to standardized, uniformity across the board. That also improves the service for the residents. I mentioned midterm plans. We were talking to Great Lakes Water. We're working with them. They've been trying to work with them as a partner. I mean, obviously there are contractual obligations, but we're trying to exert pressure that they will try to control their system as much as possible. We've been toying with some engineering ideas that can help supplement the system as a whole. But again, the long-term plan is we have to just incrementally, systematically go through all of the water mains. There's just no two ways about it. More aggressively tackle it. Again, that takes down a lot of our maintenance costs. This is why we're doing what we're doing. So again, I appreciate it. We already have, again, a number of water mains that we've been looking at. I mean, we didn't just pick this haphazardly. We worked with the feedback from our monitoring, from directly from Public Works, feedback from residents. Again, we're trying to consolidate a list of as many as we can and then have them kind of shovel ready, because if there's an opportunity to move faster, we will.
Well, it is crucial to be in constant dialogue with GLWA and part of their committee structure in that, so that we are on their capital improvement plans as well. And to that end, on October 24th, the Senior Men's Club is hosting the CFO of GLWA. So from an advocacy standpoint, it wouldn't hurt for us to be well represented at that meeting to make certain that they're well aware of our concerns. Any other comments on this matter before we move to vote? Yes, Ms. Gallagher? Sorry. Would you like to go
Please go
first? Thank you. I like your jacket. So what we're doing here, the pipes, the hydrants, the lines, the valves, the water mains, it's pretty standard, right? I mean, it's pretty standard stuff. And so you're putting together you're asking for $90,000 to put together the plan so that it can go up to bid. And we're talking about standardization, right? Trying to have standards. Are you going to be standardizing your plan because you approach all of the rest of the city? We have, these are going to be lots of areas accordingly, right? So if we're, 90,000, it might be in our best interest to, hire an in-house engineer who could potentially look at that, right? We'd be able to save a lot of money if we're looking at spreading that across the entire city. So is that something that you would be looking at, as it is kind of, a standard approach, right?
There are standard elements. There are, I'll say every street has nuances to it. There's always going to be need for some level of design. I think our goal is that we try to reduce that level as much as possible. These first couple of weeks, we're going to learn some things. There's things that work well, things that don't. And we learned that on MAC. There's things that, and our goal would be to get to what we call like a standard set of details. So how our water services are installed, where our valves are hydrant spacing. Eventually, that's gonna be fairly standard, because that makes it an easy system to operate. The pipes are usually in the same spot, the valves are usually in the same spot. Operators don't have to go looking if they need to shut down a valve, that type of thing. That is the goal. There is always gonna be a design element, permitting that is required from the state. You basically have to show your work to some extent about how you're actually gonna do it. And unfortunately, that's getting a little more challenging than not. But I think, to your point, I mean, the goal is to bring that cost down because the work ahead of us is significant.
Yes, and then my second point was, you talked about contractually with LEWA that we have, that they are contractually allowed to increase that pressure, right, during the summer when everyone's putting water in their pool and watering their grass. And maybe because we had so much rain over a short period of time, people weren't doing that, water pressure went up, several of those water main breaks happening. Is there a way, Nick, maybe this is for you and for council, if we can maybe look to have some kind of an amendment to our contract that would have some kind of control about those pressure points when they go up, what type of communication has to happen with us so that we're aware, and how we could potentially distribute that capacity through this augmented system that we're looking at to increase capacity, et cetera. So in tandem, I see two opportunities there, and maybe we can leverage both from a
think so.
contractual perspective.
Yeah, when the contracts reopen, and I apologize to every 3 or 5 years, I think that would be the time to be able to insert that in and see what we can do.
Because I think when we just came on council, you had signed a 20-year, is it for water?
Water
Is it
service
water-
contract.
water- Is this
Yeah.
a service contract that this is under, or is this a separate?
So we had the water service contract several years ago, which was 30, and then there was actually a contract reopener about a year later. Just the way that the GLW threshold, when they go to all the other communities, and then will probably be 2 years, I don't want to say definitive, but somewhere around.
Maybe when it's time, we can look at creating some kind of a structure in that language that requires some announcement to us or some lowering that requirement of how high they can raise that, given our current infrastructure. That's all. Thank you.
Anything else, council?
We have one quick one.
Yes, Mr. Ross.
I see it's 2 blocks right on Beaconsfield. And then, do you know the timeline? We'll start in July?
So yeah, I think we would basically do bids in the spring and then, it's basically starting in July for the fiscal year.
How long do you think that'll take? What's the expected?
I mean, it really should be done by the fall, yeah.
Well, thank you. Good report as always.
Clerk?
Commissioner Brenner,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallagher,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caulfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiener,
Yes.
Commissioner Rayland,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Mayor Hodges.
Yes. Thank you, clerk. Motion carries. We now have a proposal for the 2024 Beaconsfield and Maumee Water Main Improvement Project approved. Thank you, Mr. Droz, for your expertise in helping us navigate that. Next on the agenda is approval of the Mack Avenue Water Main Replacement Change Order. The proposed resolution or motion is to approve that resolution authorizing payment of the change order for the Mack Avenue Water Main Project at a cost not to exceed $74,700. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Moved by McMillan, is there a seconded by Wiener? Mr. Droz.
So included in the packet is a cover letter and then a summary memo that discusses basically the makeup of that $74,000 change order. It amounts to about 16% of the original contract with New City Contracting, which pushes it again another 74,000 roughly for that. Included within that item, a couple items that I just want to highlight. Probably the most significant item that was covered in here is some of the, we call it storage excavation for unknown utilities. This project was rebid, originally bid in 2020. It was going to be done as part of the Mack Avenue paving project. But it was rebid for this work earlier this year. And as construction began, it was determined that there was basically some missing utilities that were not on the original bid documents. And what it essentially required the contractor to do was to move their operation more into the pavement than they had intended. So it basically required additional, we call it storage excavations, where they had to go find utilities that were marked out on the pavement, to basically get an actual location of that. And then it also required more work within Mac Avenue that had more traffic as a result. And again, that's the most significant item. This was about $32,000 for that. There was also some contaminated soils that were noted. Mayor Hodges mentioned the use of soil borings. That's something that, I think as part of any water main project is going to get done. Ideally, if we find those, things do get missed sometimes. Typically how borings are done is that they're spaced out 250, 500 feet apart. And it's possible to miss, in that area. It kind of all gets back to the kind of the risk control. So you may spend a little more on the borings, you may end up finding something that ideally you can avoid. There's also a note on here about the Wayne County permit fee. That was a number that the contractor was really unaware of until they actually went to go pull the permit. And that was kind of basically any contractor was going to have to deal with that item. It was unforeseen. So ideally, I think this is something that we don't like to have this happen. We want to have contingency within the contract, so the contractor can just keep moving and we don't have to come back to council. But I think it's also beneficial to show that there are things that do come up during construction. There was negotiation with the contractor to try to reduce some of these. There was some items that were thrown out as well. But this ultimately came back to an amicable solution between the contractor and OHM and PW. I guess some context, although it is a significant number, it still is under the second low bidder, which was about 530,000. So even with the additional increase, still would be under that second low bidder. So competitive bid as it was, a lot of times contractors, if they're that far underbid, there might be a reason for it. I think all in all, we were pretty happy with the contractor. So with that, I guess I can pause and ask if there are any questions.
This project here, it's understandable. I mean, you ran into situations. What was the project we did by Kirchhoff between Defer and Bedford? Was that over budget or under budget?
That was the paving project.
Yeah.
We just completed. We actually ended up coming down under on that one. We had a little extra funds that we were able to use for some additional sidewalk.
So we were a little bit ahead there. Here, so it might be close to being wash.
I would, to be fair, I think our savings on Kirchhoff wouldn't quite match with this, but
it helps.
different funds. But yeah, in general, I think the goal is that we try to do more of the Kirchhoff style when we have the contingency in there. So we're not in a situation where we have to, go over a contract.
I think this is a situation too, being that this was our first water main we've done in over 30 years. So as we're, we're learning that side for that type of project, and then per Councilman Gallagher's standpoint too, for what do we do in those densely populated, so that we know moving forward what to expect, and I think we'll eventually reduce that cost further. So it's something to consider.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Gallagher, thank you. It says here that you will expect we're hoping to get some of the money back from the deposit. Have you any experience in that? Does that ever ring true? Like, do you think we'll see anything?
Well, sometimes. It's hard to say. It's a permanent deposit. The Wayne County inspectors were out there during the project. We don't really have an accounting of how much. But ideally, there's something in the back. And when that comes back, it would come right back to the city. The city can check.
And just one last question. Yeah, I think you had mentioned that for the last paragraph, the exploratory evacuation, some surface utilities, you were working off a document from 2020.
Correct.
With all the work that we've done with scoping and understanding where our infrastructure is, would it have helped would we have been able to maybe identify some of that if we had used a more recent, document to go out to bid?
I think, I would say that's probably a lesson learned is that, even on something like that, maybe spending a little extra time to go out and vet it. The document had already been bid out once, so it wasn't necessarily our document, but as part of due diligence, maybe to check that with a little more scrutiny would have been good.
It was also like electric and other utilities.
It was
Not
not
all
just,
of it
not
would
just
be
one,
there.
it
Yeah.
was, there was a couple, but.
Yeah, understandable,
Yeah,
maybe
right.
because we had spent so much time and money on, our infrastructure and scoping it out and updating the document.
But don't
Might be
conflate
helpful.
mains and sewers though.
I will.
Different.
Yeah, and it was certainly, it was a DT gas main that's really kind of. And certainly, to your point, there was a lot of work that's happened in the last.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, clerk, please.
Commissioner Brenner,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallagher,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caulfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Rayland,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Mayor Hodges.
Yes, motion carries. We have the change order. Thank you, Mr. Jarvis. Our last item under new business here, other than council comment, is a SCOP Center update. I believe we have Jamie Ray Turnbull with us this evening, serving as Executive Director of the SCOP Center to provide us with that update. Mr. Seisland, is there anything you'd like to say before we move to Ms. Turnbull? Or should we just give her the,
I'd say
floor.
give Ms. Turnbull the floor. She's ready to provide an update and I think some good information. So,
Great. welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. And yes, I am the executive director, not interim any longer. So I'm happy to announce that this position is for the next 2 years to the end of 2025 to see through the opening of the Scott Center. So I'm very pleased to announce that. I'm here to give an update. Most everybody knows the familiarity of the Scott Center and what we're going to do and provide when it's open. But wanted to give an update on the process next with the Detroit parcel. We have applied for HDC submittal that has been submitted today in hopes of being on the agenda for November 8th. We don't have that confirmation yet, but as soon as we do, we'll be giving that report back to the city. And at that time, we will be going for a notice to proceed. We know that at this point, we do not qualify under the certificate of appropriateness. So our presentation is geared toward a notice to proceed. With that, I'll give you an update on where we are. Everyone can see there's quite a bit of activity that's going on at the site. We have commenced construction on the building, which is 100% in Grosse Pointe Park. The completed earthwork, utilities and foundation on the Grosse Pointe Park parcels has begun and the foundation is fully in. So we're making great progress. We are scheduled to open late spring 2025 with Scott Center programming and programming partners that will kick off the spring and summer programming, then with a full fall opening for the Grosse Pointe Theater, which will have its season kickoff in fall 2025. As far as our fundraising, we have a $45 million capital campaign goal, of which we have raised nearly 40 million from nearly 100 donors. So it's pretty remarkable that we've made that, we've accomplished that to date. We have raised $6,025,000 toward the $10 million endowment. So we're just over 46 million. And the Scott Center has secured gap funding for any funds that have not been either collected through pledges or have not been committed through donations to allow us to get through our full construction of the Scott Center. We do have some significant asks out there in the community, and they are waiting to see where we are with our City of Detroit approval. And so we're very confident that we will be able to reach our goal for fundraising by the completion of the building. But we're very fortunate through all of this that not only have the donors stepped up and even increased their donations as the construction costs have risen over the years, that we have not lost one donor. Every donor in many cases has stepped up and increased their donations. So I'm very pleased about that. We continue to get interest from programming partners throughout the state, and the list will be growing in the next coming months. And then I thought it would be good to go over some frequently asked questions that I tend to get on a regular basis. And then after, I'll open it up to any of the questions that you all might have. The Scott Center will host public hours at no cost 2 Saturdays a month. And we'll also host field trips and tours by appointments on Monday. And so we're looking forward to having that aspect of the Scott Center. We will not be utilizing any resources of the city by way of public safety, landscaping, snow removal. That will all fall under our annual operating budget, and we are not taking any space from the City Hall for an office. We have paid a performance bond required by the City of Grosse Pointe Park through the permitting process. And then here's one that comes up quite frequently. There is some confusion in regard to the Manoogian Gallery. The Manoogian Gallery is a naming opportunity. And because the Manoogians gave such a significant gift, that gallery is named for Manoogian family. And that does not mean that we are the storage facility or going to be housing their permanent art collection on a permanent basis. That gallery is going to be a rotating space for other private collections, museum collections, and will really be a rotating gallery of DIA quality, of which the DIA is one of our exhibitors among many. So I just want to make sure that people understand that, because there does seem to be some confusion that the Scott Center has become a storage unit for art, and that's in fact not correct. So let me see if there's anything else that I had to give an update on, and I think that is my update. So anyone?
Excellent, thank you. Questions for Ms. Turnbull?
All right, that's fine.
Mr. Crawford, did you have? No.
Just gonna say thank you for the updates.
Well, just to clarify, HDC is Historic District Commission.
Yes, I'm
correct?
sorry,
So,
the Detroit Historic District Commission, which is required to give us approval in order for us to demo the remaining building. That was another question. I have a resident that called that actually lives very close to the Scott Center and was told that those buildings are staying up permanently by another resident. That's not the case. It is not our intention to hold on to the salt sheds or the building at DPW. So.
Excellent, good. Well, that's
Okay.
very helpful. Again, no questions from anybody?
Thank you.
I have one question,
Oh,
sorry.
Mr. Rowland, yes, please.
So when you get, thanks for the update. When you get to HTC, if you get on the agenda, are you proposing any kind of change to the site plan?
Yeah, so there's modification with a public plaza portion on the corner of Alter and Jefferson. It's proposed.
But no building changes?
There are no building changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Any questions? You know where to find me.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, council, we are motoring through here. We are now on item 6 under new business, council comment. Yes, Mr.
I
McMillan.
have two things. In my opinion, this is my opinion only, I'm against the cannabis in the Grosse Pointes. Grosse Pointe Park has a long-standing tradition of supporting family, which leads to a safe, clean, and ethical and prosperous community. Allowing cannabis to enter into our community, I think will compromise our strong families. That's number one. Number two, I think as we listen to Patrick, we talk about communication. This is where it will be key in June, July, talking to those residents, because that's going to be a lot of work there. And we need to be up in front of that before we have problems, because that's a huge street closure, and I don't know how you're going to do it, but it's going to be a challenge. So communication will be the key coming up in June, July. That's it.
Thank you. Other comments?
No, just wanted to, I know we got into the weeds a little bit on the finance, but yes, Ginger is, just so everybody is aware, and I know you are, but this quarterly report that she's putting together is very detailed, a lot more than what we've ever had. And to your question, Councilman, that report of payments, I think she could easily print that off. I just want to make note that in our budget, we will see this for next year, that there are very detailed line items of where these vendors are, the money we're spending, and who it's going to. So with that, the report, I'm sure she could add. And if you saw it in the consent agenda, that was her first go around of the quarterly, which is very good to read. And I've been asking her to put that on the public
website so that you all can see it as well. My only second comment, I know this whole planning, I mean, the only comment I'm gonna say is we need to respect the process. We have to understand that this was a very open draft from McKenna. And nothing was going to be decided on, and I wouldn't have decided on that either. But that was all I wanted to say.
Mr. Hoffman, anything else? Mr. Ellen?
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. So, as many of you know, it's my last meeting. I'd like to take this moment to thank the residents of Grosse Pointe Park. It's been an honor to serve you as a representative of the resident voice for the last 4 years, most of the time. We're such a great city, first and foremost because of you, our residents. Our people really are what make this community shine. I think we all can agree on that. I was inspired to run for office due to a huge lack of communication from the city regarding my home and about 200 other homes that flooded in 2016, where the city's incompetence led to a failure in the pump system. That was followed by additional floods in 2021, this time affecting even more residents, probably a lot of you. This highlighted our urgent need for infrastructure updates that we needed. We learned about this, that they probably should have been addressed for decades. In 2017, I was thrown into the role of a resident representative as we put together a town hall to try to help these people that had flooded. We filled the theater down at Windmill Point. And I was coming to meeting after meeting. And I was also a victim from the city's lack of upkeep. And there was no one that was stepping up to a council to help us. So I've always been very concerned about the safety of our school-age kids as well. The safety of our bikers and pedestrians. Back in 2017, there were obvious safety issues in my mind, and I knew we could do better. So before I was elected, I came to council meetings for almost 2 years, where most months I was the only person that publicly commented, trying to address concerns that we've discussed with other residents. We had discussions about this and also consistently pushing for stronger bike and pedestrian safety. What I saw was a lack of regards to resident concerns and communications with them. My lovely wife and number one supporter, Wendy, looked at me and said, you know, if you want to make any kind of change that isn't their idea, you need to be sitting up there. We were starting to get used to being ignored by council, as a lot of us have in the past. So we decided to make that change. And then here we are today, and it seems we're still missing the mark on how to communicate projects effectively with the community. It's starting to improve, which is good, and that comes from us talking about it, and I'm very thankful about that. But I don't think we still properly value the voices of our residents. We were mentioning that we're not going to vote on this parking thing to demolition homes, but all of you already did that. We voted 6-1 to knock down homes for parking just last year. So a lack of communication in my mind leads to a lack of trust, which goes hand in hand with a lack of transparency and true resident focus. I think we all need to do better. And I think we are doing better. We need council members that understand this, and I hope you all understand that. Come November, we'll have 2 to 3 new council members at this table. I hope we can all be representatives that deeply analyze the important decisions we make, listen to our residents' feedback, and truly think of our residents first. Trust me, after I retire from council, I'm going to be back in the crowd asking questions again. But more importantly, I'll be encouraging everyone at this table to think of our residents first and foremost. Lastly, as I have learned and grown in my role here, I hope I've inspired all of our leaders to do better. And thank you again. It has been an honor most of the time.
Anybody else?
I just to reiterate for you, in speaking with Ginger, you can do maybe a spending by budget and a dashboard, right? Would be really easy to do.
She's putting it together, so yeah.
Yeah, spending, and then we can see it, we have some clarity, we're good to go. Thank you.
That's it. Well, and Mr. Seisland, we've made dramatic progress as a community over the last couple of years. So thank you for your leadership on that. Clearly, a gap remains with communications. So, Councilmember Brenner, I know you've worked hard through the creation of the Community Engagement Committee, which was charged with working on being in dialogue and in communication with our community, as well as improving the mechanisms that go along with that. So you're right, Councilmember Rowland, we have made structural change. You can't just say words, right? You got to provide for it structurally. So we're getting there, but this is our challenge to you very publicly, that communication has to improve. please. Because you're right, it does compromise trust when we're not in dialogue. So you will see that is one of my priorities. And I think now that we have tackled some of the really big stuff, like infrastructure, like our deficit, there's no reason not to put some focus on communication. And then I'd also like to just really laud our outgoing council members, Councilmember Rowland, as well as Councilmember Brenner. Thank you for your service. We will more properly acknowledge your contributions and laud you later in the year. Tonight didn't seem like the right time because we don't even know. We'll have lots of things, I think, to laud and acknowledge in November and December. So be thinking about what you might want included in your resolutions because you want them to be special and to really reflect the contributions that you've made over the years. But for tonight, thank you very much for your service. And now you get Mondays off for a while, which is kind of cool. Mr. Wiener, it looks like we might have something more to
Real
add.
quick, first I was gonna say, wish you all the best. It's been nice sitting next to you. And then if Councilmember Brenner's not gonna say something, I will really quickly. I worked with him closely on infrastructure and communications. I value dependability and work ethic more than anything else. You know, we talk often about, Friday to Monday, well, with Councilmember Brenner, Mayor Pro Tem Caulfield as well. I always knew that I could count on you when I asked you for any help. You were a tremendous man. We've done a lot on infrastructure and on communication. And again, I really value the fact that I always knew if you said you were going to do something, you got it done. That's tremendous. So again, I'm going to miss you. So.
Likewise, thank you.
Dare say something?
I also want to say thank you to Councilmember Rayland for your hard work and your dedication. You have always been
Committed to communicating to the community. Not easy to say, but you've done a great job at that, and so well done. And you will be missed. And I know the community has appreciated you and on the board as well. And Ryan, you've done a tremendous job. You've made us laugh so many times up here, and we need that sometimes. I thank you for that and for your hard work. And then just on a personal note, my nephew is playing for the Phillies. His name's Nick Castellanos, and I'm really proud of him. So if you're a baseball fan, please watch the Phillies and watch my nephew. He just hit another home run in this game, so I'm really excited for him. So go Phillies. He used to play for the Tigers, and I wish they had not traded him. He wanted to stay here and this be his home team, but they didn't want to pay him the money he wanted. But anyway, that's a side note for me. Go Phillies.
You gotta put towards the sidewalks, the sewers.
All
We're gonna have a problem.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Williams. I think we're good now to move on to public comment. All right, with that, our community, this is your moment to speak. We would welcome you to the podium. I don't think we need to remind you of the 3 minutes and stating your name and your street. These comments are for items that are not on the agenda. I see a hand in back, Mr. Lowe.
Rulo on White Point Street. Pass. An elected official and a servant leader model. What does that mean? Leadership style based on the idea of serving the greater good. These leaders serve others first. They don't prioritize their own objectives. People led by servant leaders know that their voices are heard. The servant leader shares power. Those who live here know the variety of ways which Vikas has put the park first. I think the clearest evidence of his impact on this city can be found on the Facebook community page, also known as Carly's page. When issues are raised concerning city government, what council member gets tagged? He is, because they know he'll answer when others won't. He's proved time and time again that residents can rely on him. Perhaps the most high-profile example of this occurred after the 2016 flood, when he, with the help of others, organized fellow residents into a rescue squad for flooded basements. But other examples from the long list include forming the Be the Change volunteer group to help seniors, crafting international festivals at Pierce and Trombley, serving on the Safe Routes to School Committee and the Senior Village Committee, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, being an early supporter of Grosse Pointe Pride, and supporting the Grosse Pointe Art Association as board member. Because you persisted through some very serious illness and shabby treatment by some members on this dais. We would have understood if you stepped aside, but you didn't. You carry our concerns and you raise our questions. And most of all, sir, you are wired for joy and empathy always. You draw people in and you form us as a team. You may not have been from here, We're damn lucky we found them.
Thank you, Mr. Others who would like to switch, by the way, folks in the hall, there are now spaces, seats, you can come and make yourself at home, hello, Patrick. Who else would like to speak this evening?
Keep
Yes.
walking. Hi, my name is Ron Porter, I live on Pemberton. And I'm just here to thank personally, Councilmember Rowland for his service on this council. Thank you for serving the residents of this city with dedication and a single focus to make life better for all the residents of Grosse Pointe Park by trying to make the city council administration more transparent, more competent, more responsive to all the residents. Thank you for not being a rubber stamp for whatever the city administration wanted to do or didn't want to do. Thanks for asking questions, probing the answers, and raising many issues that a lot of people just didn't want raised, and many remain hidden. Thanks for wanting the city to do better and having your priorities straight. You knew that we needed safer water, safer sewage disposal, better police and fire protection, more residential options, and a focus on growing our tax base. You knew that our city can only get better if we provide better opportunities for more people who live here, and that a city can't thrive in the future if it gives away its commercial tax base and tears down its residential tax base. You are a tireless advocate for those priorities, and I am very thankful for it. I'm also thankful that you brought new levels of personal transparency and communication to council. Residents could always reach you with their concerns, and you were always willing to talk about an issue and help get it resolved. You wanted the city to have a government that operated like you did. Open communication, always willing to listen and help, and real desire to understand what the residents' concerns are and help get them addressed. Lastly, and sadly, I have to mention that your efforts on behalf of the residents generated a shocking level of animus from many city officials and many of the prominent residents. Some of the hostility was personal, some frankly was racial or ethnic. I don't know what else to call someone who says that you are not one of us. I know all this took a great toll on you, on your health and your well-being, but it never stopped you from trying to serve the residents of this city. You are truly a public servant in the best sense of the word. The only good thing that can be said to have come from all the animus directed your way is that it showed all of us how far we have to go if we're going to be a truly open and welcoming city for everyone who wants to live here. So thank you, Vikas, for all you did to make our city a better place to live.
Yes.
Well, just like everybody else, I'm up here today. Thank you, bro. Colin McComb, Pemberton. Seriously, man, 4 years ago, when you first talked to me about running, I didn't think that you were going to stick it out. I am really surprised and delighted at what you have done and how you have brought this community together. You've been an engaged listener. You obviously care about this community. Not only did you do the flood cleanup in 2016, but also 21. I mean, we went to several houses to do cleanup for people. Complete strangers, but this is just something that's in your DNA. There's also the Safe Streets to School. You're making sure kids crossing Jefferson can get up to Pearson Defer properly. You're insightful. You're willing to ask questions that might make you unpopular with your colleagues up here. You've handled yourself with grace when attacked in a way that is frankly astonishing given the level of vitriol that was hurled at you. You are a classy, classy man. And, you've also done your fiduciary duty as a council member. You brought to light a number of the shady, let's say, or unsavory perhaps practices that the city has been plagued with in the past. And I hope that the rest of you up here will continue to dig out these things and actually make this a transparent body so that the citizens will feel like we actually have a voice in the community.
You're always looking out for the common people of GPK. I'm proud to support you and I'm proud to call you a friend, bro.
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. Yes, Mr. Schroeder.
Dick Schroeder, Lake Point. I'd like to thank Brian. My dad used a term called middle of the road extremist. I had no idea what that was growing up, but I appreciate that term and I think you've fallen in that category. I also know that a lot of you people have been attacked over things that are attributed to you, even though they're not attributed to you. And I just want to warn you that the next thing that's going to come up, bite you guys in the butt, is going to be the animal control. Now, I do know a lady who's a certified animal control officer. That lady also happens to be the co-founder of the Grosse Pointe Animal Adoption Society. They've got no room. Let's go to the city of Detroit. They've got no room. Let's go to Michigan May. You get my drift. No shelter has room for anything that we're looking for. For us to build one, now you're looking at probably, I'm guessing, over $1.5 million to actually build a shelter. And let's say we build one for 30 animals. 10 weeks, we take in 3 animals. What are we going to do after 10 weeks? We're stuck in the same spot we are right now. Plus, we spent $1.5 million. Now, when you build you're just not going to build a barn and put these dogs in there and throw in heat, throw in food. You're going to have intake. You're going to have an intensive care where you put dogs you think might have parvo, even though they don't. You're going to have to isolate those dogs. So it's just impossible. The way you get rid of your dog problem is you spay and neuter all dogs everywhere. And that's just not going to happen. This is something you're going to chase, but it's going to be ginned up and it's going to be your fault. That's all there is to it. You know, you can look all you want, nothing good's going to come of that. You know, and I know after talking to more than a few of you that none of you want to tear down 100 houses. We did not tear down 500,000 or 500 houses, as Plan Moran says, because I also have a relative that looked into that as a board certified realtor. And they tore down 54 houses in Grosse Pointe Shores. They didn't tear down one house in Grosse Pointe Shores. And when they did, they put up another house. So that just was half. So to use numbers like that is just absolutely ridiculous. And as far as Airbnbs, my son lives next door to an Airbnb in Scottsdale, Arizona. And his greatest joy is at 3 a.m. when the people that have rented the Airbnb next door come in off of their van and try to get into his house because they think, oh, this is the house we rented. Don't do Airbnbs. Don't let them anywhere near us. Just a bad idea all the way around. If people want to rent their houses for 30 days, do that. No Airbnbs.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder.
Yes. St. John?
Yes, still Valerie St. John, a resident of your city. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again because sometimes things come up during the meeting that you want to address. Mayor Hodges, I don't understand how you can claim that you had goodwill when you previously voted for residential areas to be zoned as parking lots against the wishes of every single impacted resident who was present at that meeting. I wasn't able to attend that meeting, but I did watch the recording, and it was clear that day that good governance was not happening. Don't try to gaslight the public by saying we are overreacting. I watched my neighbor sob as her home was shaken by surprise demolition. She had no notice and no timeline given. It's perfectly reasonable for people to be concerned about any hint of proposed parking lots now, given this city council's track record. Telling people that they need to respect the process before complaining is really condescending, when we have previously endured changes with no planning or communication whatsoever. The public now knows we have to keep a close eye on our elected officials, and that's what we're doing. Moving on to the only council member who actually listened to the public that night, and who sadly will no longer be serving us, I want to say that this city was lucky to have Councilmember Relin for 4 years of public service. Through at least 2 floods and a pandemic, Councilman Relin always put the needs of his constituents at the top of his agenda. He knew that his power came directly from the public who elected him. Every governing official should seek to represent the public, not just those who voted for them, not just those who contributed to their campaigns, with the best interests of the entire public. Councilman Rellin always answered questions or searched for the answers when they were unclear. I know Councilman Rellin always sought to communicate with residents about our best interests as his priority, and I truly appreciate his service. I wish you were running again, but I understand that you don't have 4 years of patience left. You deserve to rest. Thank you for never giving up on your neighbors.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, it's been you.
And Lisa. Easy to follow.
This has to do with the GFL. Last December, I'm on the beautification commission, and we hosted the KDM Christmas luncheon. And I had ordered some food from Mimi's Bristol, some pastries, and when I went to go pick them up, the trash container, if you was right as I turned into the driveway right there, and the handle out of it scraped the whole side of my car. When I went into Mimi's to ask her who owned that, she asked me what happened, and I told her, and she said that she had been having problems with that for quite a while. She had called the city, and they said that they owned it, but they were not responsible for it, that GFL was. And she said, here's a, go to the second page, she said, here's the information that she requested. She sent it to Daryl, who was in charge of claims, and she told him exactly what had happened, and that she had, informed them before, and she was sending my information, and he was to call me to talk to me. He never called. I didn't even know about this, and I was gone, and then if you could see the pictures, you can see where it was, right there where the curb is that they placed it. And the next picture is of my car. I was away for the winter, and when I came back, then I went to Nick to tell him about it. And Nick then contacted someone else, there, James Perkins, and talked to him. And James Perkins claimed that, well, they were responsible because somebody could have moved that trash bin or it could have rolled. Now, I don't know if anybody that strong that could move that trash bin or roll it. And that they were not responsible for my damage to my car. And so he gave him my number to call me, which he never did. And then I called him, Nick gave me his number. I called him like 4 times. He refused to return my calls. Next one is Mel that owns Mimi's Bristol, got very angry and wrote Nick this James letter and telling them, and he also said that if someone had informed them before about this problem, they would have taken care of it. Well, she had been informing them, and nobody had taken care of it. And the last one was Dick asked me, had he ever got a hold of me? And I was up at City Hall, so I left Dick a note and said, no, I called him 3 or 4 times, and he never had. And then I wrote him a letter, and I lost it somewhere on my computer. And he never answered. They refused to answer me. And I don't feel like I should have to pay for it because they got incompetent workers that refuse to put it back. There's a cement stand that they're supposed to put it on, and they refused to put it on. And I was just there a week and a half ago with Belle, and she brought me outside. She says, look, I'm not gonna believe it. They still won't put back on there. So I just feel that they should be paid for it, not me.
Mr. Seisman has indicated he'll follow up with you. Ann.
Okay.
So sorry about the
Yeah.
situation. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Others, yes, Ms. Denman.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Cheryl Denman of Pemberton, a proud Park resident of 33 years. Thanks to council, city administration, public safety, and staff for all you do to make Grosse Pointe Park great and the #1 community to live in all of Wayne County. Public service equals public trust, and you are only as strong as your weakest link. I'm here to request outgoing Councilman Rowland to stop wasting city resources. Mr. Rowland's full-time activism and protesting of investment in this community is tiresome and ill-placed. What community in Michigan doesn't wish for a $45 million art center? Generous donors, commercial developers, and even residents like me in modest homes are happily investing in Grosse Pointe Park. None of us need the frivolous complaints. It is a waste of time. Former chief has written letters of correspondence requesting Mr. Rowland's discontinuance, but he fails to heed the good advice. You sure have many demands and ideas to control what people can and cannot do on their own property, Mr. Rowland. You're also a very courteous listener. Without the financial resources to do anything, you resort to whining and complaining about the people who do. This is not personal. Your radical ideas in recent council meetings to change the Michigan Building Code was laughable. You nor the city control MCL. Your behaviors have more to do with you than any of us here investing in Grosse Pointe Park. Since you moved in 7 years ago, you filed dozens of reports wasting city time. I've broken no laws, I've broken no ordinances, nor have I been fined for anything at any time. The community watched you protest the Beaupre building, Janet's Lunch, the amazing Art Center, and now residential builds. It is your choice to disinvest and delay needed improvements to your own residents, but other citizens wish to secure our building envelopes and enhance our homes. In these financially uncertain times, one would think the city of Grosse Pointe Park would welcome this investment. Other communities in which we live sure do. We don't need your attention, Mr. Rowland. The numerous beautification awards at our homes over the decades are enough for us. Your misplaced confusion and self-anger are on full display. A true leader in Grosse Pointe recently quoted theologian Tutu, and I'll leave you with this: do your own little bit of good where you are. It's the little bits of good put together which overwhelm the world. And we're overwhelmed with you, Mayor, and the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Denman. Others? Yes, Ms. Rowland.
On November 5th, 2019, Vikas Roland, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, was elected to Grosse Pointe Park City Council. He was the first person of color to be elected to this position, and he garnered more votes than any previous council member. Voters overwhelmingly supported his promise for transparency and his promise to listen to all residents, not just those residing on Windmill Point. He relied on small donations and did not take any dark money like many on current council. The last 4 years have not been easy for you, and as your big sister, have not been easy for me. You have been publicly and privately harassed by many, and by a propaganda publication known to many of you for its fake news. In the fall of 2021, when you laid in the ICU, your organs shutting down, and doctors could not diagnose your condition, the city council agreed to move forward a frivolous ethics claim by a woman with a very fragile ego, too much time on her hands. Ms. Cotton's claim was not dismissed initially, as it should have been, but instead moved forward, resulting in a waste of city resources funded by my taxes. None of you offered any support or compassion. 2022, a GPP Parks committee member admitted making racist remarks about Councilman Vikas. None of you stood up for him. Instead, you defended the offender. I ask you, what if one of your daughters was ever convicted with sexual harassment? Would you say act in grace as you did to Vikas? No, I think you would do everything in your power to try to punish this person for what they did. Again, this city council showed its lack of empathy and integrity by defending a racist and not supporting their colleague. Through his relentless pursuit of transparency and accountability, DeCoste has transformed this city in many ways that will continue to resonate in years to come. You started a movement, you got people engaged, and when you're no longer on council, we will remain engaged, we will be watching and listening, and most importantly, we will be voting. Thank you for your service in making GPP a better place.
Anybody else? Mr. Van? Oh, yes, Mr. Kenny.
Good evening, my name is Ed Keelan. I'm here with my wife Chris. We live at 912 Berkshire. I want to be associated in support of the laudatory comments in favor of Councilman Rowland. And second, what Ms. Rolu said, Porter said, Mr. Combs. I think DeCoste has been a standout council person for the last 4 years. I regret he's not coming back for another term, but I think we all should note good work he has done to date. I'd also compliment Councilman Bremer for having done his duty for the last couple of years. I encourage this council to continue with the effort to be more transparent, more outreach, get more involvement from the citizens. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Gannon.
I'll make it short if I can. I hope you understand even half the depth of feeling people have for you, the respect and the love. Really appreciate you. We've suffered along with you through your trials and your challenges, and we've basked in your glory, and we really appreciate all your effort. Hope you don't give up on the city completely. Still stay as engaged as you were before you were on council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, like they say on sports radio, first time, long time. I've been watching council, I guess, about 5 years now, and I appreciate everything. I wanted to come tonight as it's the end of the term, and 4 of you are transitioning from this term, and really wanted to say thank you. Michelle, Marty, thanks for the service. Brian, thank you. And I think it probably goes without saying enough, families also serve. So Jay, Isaac, Annika, and Val, our thanks go to them too. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to having you back in the stands at all the events that you've missed. Thanks for that. Thank you. Vikas, you're exactly the kind of person that should serve on local government. And we're grateful for your service. I'm sorry to see you go. I know before you ever considered a council seat, you serve the community hands-on, the way everybody is supposed to. From organizing social events with your friends, to cleaning poop out of neighbors you don't know, to checking in on shut-ins, and just the countless hours at the schools. You were a civil servant ever being elected, and I have no doubt that you're going to continue with that advocacy. And for that, I say thank you. What I admired most about your service was you did it without any political ambition. It was truly to serve your community, and I'm grateful. Despite those honorable intentions, it's been clear you're not leaving this service unblind. We've heard lots of folks refer to it in action tonight. People threatening you personally, professionally, financially, confronting you physically, all for simply hoping to be the voice and represent the people in the community without regard for their wealth, rank, or honor. I really appreciate that. And that's a true servant's heart. I would tell you, as you look back in the future, hopefully you'll look back with pride and see the inspiration and legacy you've left. You've inspired a generation of leaders who are going to come up and ask the tough questions that I think our city needs to be asked every day. You've inspired a generation of residents who remain grateful for living here, who appreciate what Grosse Pointe Park is, but who demand of voice and participation in the community. And I think that's something that's going to be your ultimate legacy that people see. So, with that, you look back at the prudent financial choices you've made, the vision for what transparency should look like and what a voice in the community should be. And I'll say thanks again for that. So, Wendy, Verona, thank you for giving us Vikas for these 4 years. And thank you, my friend. I'm looking forward to celebrating our Mondays. Thank you, guys.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Gosford, welcome.
Like many, I'm here to just to say thank you to Vikas for his service. I had the good fortune to get to know Vikas over a decade ago when I found out that I moved into one of the best blocks in the park of Nottingham, where the Raylands are our neighbors. And even back then, Vikas was a fantastic neighbor, always selfless, always helping neighbors, having fun with neighbors, but always would listen very genuinely to neighbors and also follow through on whatever he had said he was going to do. And when Vikas said that he was going to run for council, I could think of a few people who would be better for it. And there's been a lot of talk about good governance here, and it's something that I take very, very personally. Personal values, also professional values. And Vikas you're one of the few council members we've had in the last several years who has actually been about good governance, both in what you've said and also your actions. And you have done that at a deep personal cost to you, but it's also been at a benefit to our residents. So I just want to thank you for listening to my neighbors when I've referred them to you, whether it was about a house being torn down across the street or next door to themselves, to their house, or to wheat-filled lots, other problems, rusty water out of nowhere in their house. We're one of the few who actually not only listened to them, but followed up with them, and made sure that action happened for them. So thank you for that. You'll be greatly missed on this council. And thank you for your exemplary service.
Thank you. Others? Ryan was a V, is there a Z?
Just one more.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
My name is Jonathan Clark. I live on Bishop. I'm here to say thank you, Councilman Raylan, for the spirit that you brought. I don't have your baseball card in terms of all the details, right? I'm quite impressed by the tributes, the accolades that have been brought tonight. I can just say from my personal experience, my interactions with you have meant a lot. And the things that I've seen you do for other citizens, there's power there, and you've done everything that you could do to affect positive change. And that seems to be who you are. And so thank you for bringing that to this place, even when others made it very, very difficult to be that kind of person here. So again, all I can do is just say thank you. And I know you're not going away, and you did not squander your time. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, team. It's very nice, Mr. Mayor. I think we're up for adjournment. Is there a motion?
Motion.
By Caulfield, seconded by Reller, to adjourn at 9:24. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Brenner?
Yes.
Commissioner Gallagher?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caulfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiener?
Yes.
Commissioner Rowland?
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Mayor Hodges.
Yes, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
That's a skill.